Hi, I'm Doug Doherty with Hamilton Flourishing, and we're so glad that you joined us. We got another conversation today, and we're thrilled, thrilled, to have school board member Joe Smith, who's a longtime fixture in the Chattanooga area, here here to talk to us about his role in the school board, his plans, what he sees as the vision for the Hamilton County Department of Education, and I'm going to ask him a little bit about what's the work like of being on a school board. I get asked that a lot. But Joe, glad you're here. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for asking me. It's a joy to be here with you guys.
That's great. Now, you represent District 3.
District
Tell
3.
everybody what District
That's
3 is.
Hickson, Middle Valley, Big Ridge, and Lakeside.
Okay.
So it's God's country up there, Doug.
Well, I'm not going to argue it. Joe, you had a life before you got into the school board. You had a long career with the YCAP.
That's correct.
Talk about what that was, what you were doing. For how long did you do that?
25 years.
What did you do?
And, well, in 1998, we began a program called YCAP, YCAP, which stood for YMCA Community Action Project. And in short, that program is an early intervention prevention program for at-risk kids, middle school age, so 9 to about 14 years old. Did that for 25 years.
What did they do?
Well, it provided tutorial support, mentoring, individual and family counseling, and then a lot of adventure-based recreation and just a number of activities to get young people engaged in healthy, esteem-building activities and to keep them off the streets doing healthy adolescent development kind of things.
Let me back up even further. How did you get into YCAP? Did you have some kind of background with working with kids?
Well, it's interesting. You know, as a young person, I had my own struggles, and as a young man with drugs and alcohol, in 1987, God did an intervention in my life, and so just kind of used my own life experiences and really being called to the work to work with young people. And over the years, my wife and I have raised 19 foster kids plus 2 kids of our own.
You got your own reality show?
No, we don't have that. We can probably make one. So just having a heart for hurting kids and families and is my life's work until 2017. And Doug, I tried to retire, and I did for about 1.5 years, but I didn't do retirement very well. My wife and I really played hard for about 1.5 years, and man, I just felt like I needed to go back to work. God wasn't done with me, and so in December of 2018, I went back to work as director of Prison Prevention Ministries.
And that's what you're doing
That's
now?
what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Right. And spent a lot of time and
Great program.
well,
Used to go down to Walker County myself a lot.
yeah, it's been around for over 40 years, you know, and in helping inmates as they're coming out of prison, find a place to live, employment. Roger Ingvelson, who was, you know, a POW himself in Vietnam, and then he came back to Chattanooga after his service and just had a heart for inmates, and he started prison prevention work 43 years ago now.
So somebody out there, they had an opening in District 3. Did somebody retire?
Well, Greg Martin ran for county commission. He was the sitting school board member at the time, and that was 6 years ago, a little over 6 years now. And so when Greg got elected to the county commission, of course, he had to vacate his school board seat. And then the county commission appointed me to fill his unexpired term. And I did that for 2 years and then ran for election and won the seat. And so now I'm into my almost 4th year of that term, so I'll be up for re-election next year.
So are you going to seek re-election?
I intend to seek re-election. I enjoy the work of the school board. It's hard work and at times can be frustrating, and
I was out there at the last school board meeting, and that's one of the biggest enterprises. In fact, it's probably the biggest enterprise in Hamilton County in terms of the number of people.
Employees, that's right.
Employees, dollars. I mean, it's just a huge thing, and there's all kinds of stuff going on, and you got, I mean, I don't see how, I wouldn't want the job that you have or that the superintendent has every day in and day out. I mean, it just seems like it's so much stuff to keep up with.
Well, it is, and I tell people all the time, I love about 80% of the work, and that's being in the schools, helping principals, helping teachers, being with students. I love that part. The other 20%, when you have to make some very difficult decisions, then that part can be frustrating and difficult at times, but I enjoy the work, and it's important work, and I just feel called to the work.
What do you, I think probably one of the things that's on the front of people's minds who have children in the school system right now is, I'm sick of talking about it, but is this whole COVID thing and mask thing and everything, and I'm not asking you to tell me anything that you shouldn't, but is that going to be is this going to be another, do you think this is going to be another difficult year like last year?
Well, it hasn't started out well in terms of COVID cases and quarantining, and we had hoped that we were past that, and I think we were for a month or two, and then this new Delta variant hit and seems to be affecting young people maybe as much or more than it is adults.
Wow. Yeah, I think, is it this week that they closed a couple of the schools?
We had five schools that shut down this week due to high positive cases, and of course then the health department requires us to quarantine, the close contacts. So the numbers in those 5 schools got so high that the decision was made that the best thing to do was let them stay at home for a few days and try to get it under control.
Now,
so
when they stayed home, did they have the Zoom classes?
What happened, back in the spring, our state legislators and the governors signed off on that school districts were not allowed to do virtual learning this year. Now, I'm very proud of Hamilton County.
Is that in perpetuity, or is that only for this year, do you know?
Well, it's until further notice, that's right. Now, what happened and where all this came about last year, Doug, when we really had high counts all over our state, all over our country, and we had to go to virtual learning a lot. Sometimes all day, but then we had the hybrid model where you'd go 2 days, another group would go 2 days. In Hamilton County, we were in school over 90% of the school days, which is great. Nobody in the state came close to that. No district in the state. So I'm very proud of that. Now, there were some districts in our state that never went to the classroom all school year. And so I'm sure our state legislators, the governor, wanted to ensure that kids are in the classroom where they need to be, and that schools didn't holistically shut down like they did last year. So on the surface, I think it's a great decision. Now, it has been a challenge with the number of kids we've had to quarantine already this school year, but not having that ability to do virtual learning. So that's been a challenge. Now, this week, when we had to shut down these 5 schools, what the governor did allow us to do, and they're looking at it a case-by-case basis. Dr. Swin, who's our state education director, they're allowing us to do some virtual learning with those 5 schools this week. So they're beginning to give us a little bit of flexibility, which I think is a good thing. To send these kids home with no instruction, that was tough. So I'm hoping that we're going to peak before long, but it may get worse before it gets better. But our kids need to be in school. They need to have a teacher and be in school every day. Parents need to work. So it's a challenge in trying to balance all that.
Oh, it's a huge, I've called it a traffic jam. I just don't see all the parts get through to where they're supposed to go with all the issues. So it sounds to me like you just had a heart for this thing for a long time. Talk to me a little bit about Hamilton County Department of Education. And this is kind of a big question, but what is the overall purpose as you see it? this may be perfectly obvious, but what is the overall purpose of the Department of Education in Hamilton County? Why do we have schools for our kids? Why do we do that?
Well, I mean, the short answer is we want to be able to provide the best possible education that we can for the young people in Hamilton County. And I mean, that's the obvious answer to your question. You know, when you got a community that's so divisive as ours is now, and everybody seems to have the answer of how the best way to do that is, and we want to do it in a way that's fair and being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollar. And you know, Hamilton County, from a square mileage standpoint, Hamilton County Schools, our district, is bigger than any district in the state from the standpoint of square miles. So when you think about that, Doug, our schools here in Hamilton County, I mean, we've got rural schools, we've got suburban schools, we've got urban schools, inner city schools, a wide range of demographic kids and families, and no district in Hamilton County is quite like Hamilton County. So in the state, in the state. So that all of that, you know, creates a challenge. You know, back in, I think it was 97, 98, when the two systems merged, and Hamilton County took over, you know, all the schools. Then, you know, we're 25 years almost now removed from that, but it's been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was the question I was going to ask you. Mrs. Coonrod, who's on the city council, brought up last week, I think it was, that UTC started a study of whether or not the schools in the city would be better off hiving off and going back to city school system. Like Shelby County has more than one school district in their county.
That's right.
So it's not illegal. Signal Mountain had a debate going on for about 2 years. About 4 years ago, they were going to separate their schools when they got that high school up there, and that was very divisive up on the mountain. And so people have talked about it. Do you have any perspective or reflection on Chattanooga hiving off to be their own school?
Well, my first reaction would be that's not a good idea. I just think that that's not being smart at all. And if you look at, you referenced Shelby County, and they did do that. At one time it was Shelby County Schools. Now they have a Shelby County system and a Memphis City system, and they're having all kinds of challenges since they did that. And then one of the reasons I think that the Signal Mountain initiative failed, if you will, depending on which side that you were on, was the cost involved in running a school system and what that would look like. And you know, when you talk about merging or splitting the system or merging the system, you know, what would be the reaction if you talked about, well, let's have one consolidated government? You know, and you're going to have the same kind of arguments.
Chip Henderson chimed in at that time. He said, well, why don't we talk about Metro again? And I thought, okay, here we go. This is the third or fourth time in my lifetime they've talked about Metro, and that never has done very well. But people do talk about we are duplicating services. We've got a sheriff's department and a police department. Of course, we got 8 municipalities within the
That's
county.
right.
They all have the same issues. Having their own everything, and so it's you know, it's something I think you need to kind of, in my perspective, let the people decide. I mean, they want to do it, but I don't think it's a good idea. I think that would end up being the tail wagging the dog if they did.
I think you're right, and you know what you would do with buildings, and again the cost, the enormous cost that I think it would create for both entities if you ended up with a county and a city school system. Very complicated, very costly for the taxpayers. So I hope that if the people do decide that, they'll think long and hard before they make a decision like that.
Let me gears just a little bit, Joe. We're talking to Joe Smith, School Board District 3, Hamilton County. Glad Joe's here. Been working with kids all his life. What do you think of the, what are the school boards? People are always asking me, I want to run for school board, I want to run for school board. What are your once you get there and you're sitting in the chair, what are the top 2 or 3 primary responsibilities of a school board member?
Well, first and foremost, the 9 of us collectively supervise one person, just one, and that's the superintendent. So he is essentially our only employee. Now there's 6,000 almost employees in the system, Hamilton County Department of Ed, that superintendent supervises, but our only employee is the superintendent, first and foremost. We approve policy with regard to how the system works. We help the superintendent do the budget every year, and I'm proud to say we've had a balanced budget for 6 years now. I'm very, very proud of that. So primarily those 3 things, if you had a pecking order, would be to supervise the superintendent, number 1, to make policy for the system, and to review and set budget for the system.
Okay, good. Now, one of the things about our form of government is that you have to have a majority of a quorum. You have a majority of enough
That's
people
right.
to get anything done.
That's right.
So in the school board, then, if you all want to change policy, you've got to have at least 5 people.
We have to have at least 5 agree to whatever the initiative or vote may be. 5 of us have to agree.
So that brings in the whole element of that. Last year I was doing a lot of interviews with people running for city council. A lot of people came in here and we talked to them, and they'd say, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that, and they just didn't understand that it took 5.
That's right.
The one person couldn't go in there and get what they wanted.
That's right.
It just didn't work that way.
That's right. That's right. And school board same way. And school board, in a perfect world, it ought to be nonpartisan. We should never think about what looks good or sounds good or acts good politically. Our decisions ought to be based on what is best for 44,000 students. But obviously, every school board member is going to bring their personal ideology, if you will, into those debates and discussions and votes. And
you've also got the issue of constituency. You got elected in District 3. So
that's right.
Assume, like Tyner just got him, he's going to get a new school. So
That's
I
right.
assume that whoever is on who is that, Rhonda?
That would be Carissa.
Carissa.
That's
Okay.
her district, right?
So I imagine she was really thrilled when Tyner got the money or got the approval for the architect and everything.
Well, no question, but I got to tell you, Doug, all 9 of us are excited about that because it needs to happen. And I got to believe that all 9 of our county commissioners who ultimately, make the funding decisions, I got to believe they're all excited about it. Now, there's been some divisiveness at the courthouse related to how all that takes place. But generally speaking, I think every one of my peers on that board, I can't speak for them obviously, but I got to believe that every single one of them want what I want, and that is to provide the best possible public education we can for 44,000 students. That's my commitment, and I got to believe it's the same with my peers on that board as well, although sometimes we disagree what it takes to get there.
Let me ask you this. I came to the last school board meeting and we got to see, was there for most of it, but Dr. Johnson just left, kind of unexpectedly.
Very unexpected, right.
How was that going? I saw where, yesterday there was an item in the paper where you all were considering a search firm to help you out. You decided that I didn't understand from the context of the story whether they will also be looking inside the system for people, or are they exclusively going to go just outside of Hamilton County?
Well, to answer that question, let me give you just a little quick background. When we hired Dr. Johnson 4.5 years ago, we hired a search firm and we did a national search. And Doug, we paid over $30,000 for that search firm. Now, granted, I think most people would agree, we found a good superintendent. And Dr. Johnson wasn't perfect, and I don't know that we'll ever find somebody that's perfect, but he did a great job. And he, in my opinion, he was here for 4.5 years, which is just about national average for a superintendent. It's kind of like a Baptist preacher. So he was here about 4.5 years, did a good job. So the bar's been set pretty high. Now, I've never understood about Hamilton County. Every time somebody has a need for a leadership role, and what comes to mind for me is the chamber, for example, River City Corporation, for example. Most recently, where I spent my whole career, the YMCA, for example. When they need a new leader, they think they have to do this national search. So it kind of begs the question, does that mean here in Hamilton County we don't train up our people well? I mean, that's a compelling question. So it's seemingly not if we think we have to go nationwide to find somebody.
The Leadership Chattanooga program.
It does. It does.
The 1989 class, so that was the second or third one, so apparently it's not working.
So we've got, to kind of answer your question, we want to find the best superintendent we can find to lead Hamilton County Department of Ed, no question. But we feel like, some of us on the board feel like that we may have the very best person right under our nose. So let's make sure that before we invest another $30,000 with some search firm, let's make sure that that search includes first an internal search that should cost very little to do an internal search. And if we don't find that person, then we may want to go nationwide. And we, several years ago, before my time on the school board, we had a local person that was born, bred, trained here in Hamilton County, Dr. Smith, and that was our superintendent. People were excited about that. A local fella, engaged, wants to be here, going to stay here. And that didn't necessarily go well. But in Rick Smith's defense, some things happened that were absolutely out of his control, and I'm talking about the Ooltewah thing. That's no secret. And so I think he got some undue thrown under the bus, if you will, related to that. So a lot of people want to say, well, last time you hired somebody local, it didn't go very well, did it? And so, I don't think we need to judge, that on simply that. And I just don't want us to spend a lot of money, taxpayers' money, doing a national search if we've got the person that's already there. And
that's smart. That's smart. And there would be, I can see real pluses to knowing the system, knowing the community, and I can also see the disadvantage, and I can see the real pluses of kind of coming here and not knowing the community and having to get to know everybody, because it would kind of force you out to get to know the community. So I can kind of see how that would work both ways.
And I think too, Doug, stability, and we've had several superintendents now in a short period of time here in Hamilton County. Yeah. And so I think stability is so important. And, I was hoping that we'd have Dr. Johnson longer than we did. The reality is, even before he left, maybe a year before he left, I was afraid we were going to lose him then. I mean, there was other systems at our doorstep wanting to take him away. So I think maybe if we have the right person, the qualified person that we think that we can do the job, that has roots deep here in Chattanooga and wants to stay in Chattanooga, maybe we can find a person that's going to be with us for a while to bring that long-term stability in our leadership. That's what I would hope for.
You've been on the school board now, Joe, 6 years now?
7 years. I have one more year left in this. Excuse me. 5. You're right, Doug. You said it right. I've served 2 years as an appointee and then I'm in my 4th year of my term that I was elected for. So right now 5, soon be 6.
You've got some perspective. What's the biggest ongoing issue that the school board, the school system faces? The biggest issue ongoing, 6 years. I mean, they just say, will this? I mean, like, will this never die? I mean, what's the vampire that just keeps coming up?
Boy, that's a big question.
It is, but you've been there long enough. I wonder if and maybe there's several. Maybe, like I hear we've got too many school buildings. I hear that some of them are old, and I hear we all are hearing all the discussions of equity, and we're hearing. I'm a big one about the literacy rate in the urban schools, and so you hear about a lot of different things. But what kind of just keeps coming up over and over again that you would say, "Golly, can't we get that right?"
Well, I think you mentioned it in just a minute ago when you talked about literacy. And, you know, we have 3rd graders that the majority of the 3rd graders in Hamilton County aren't reading up to grade level. Now, we can beat ourselves up over that, or we can say, well, that's an issue all across the country, and both would be true. It is an issue. But we got to figure that out. We got to figure it out. And Doug, over the years, even before I got on the school board and working with young people, and it's just been just absolutely disappointing to me to see kids that are in the 7th and 8th grade that can't read a 2-syllable word, and they've progressed that far, 7th or 8th grade. And the reality is, if you can't read, you can't learn. You can't learn.
Yeah, there are over 400,000 jobs available now in the state of Tennessee. If you go to the Tennessee Gov Jobs website, over 400,000 looking for employers, and every one of those requires somebody to be able to read.
Right.
I mean, you got to fill out an application report. You got to do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, you really need to.
So, to answer your question, probably the biggest concern of mine is just that we've got to do a better job in having our kids.
I think that's the biggest, for me personally, I think that's the biggest issue facing all of Hamilton County is the literacy rates, especially in our urban schools. They're so low, and it ought to be front page every day. I'm tired of reading about some of the things that they put on the front page, and I just think that children growing up and not learning how to read, it's just, especially with their hopes and dreams and gifts and things like that, and employers are waiting for them, and you know, it's just.
Well, and then too, Chairman Wingate, our school board chairman, would tell you he's a teacher, instructor, professor at Chattanooga State, and he says very often our graduates are having to do, our Hamilton County graduates are coming to Chat State and having to do some remedial work before they can start taking college level coursework, and that's not acceptable. We've got to do better in having our kids prepared the day they get their diploma to go on to post-secondary if that's what they choose to do, or to enter the workforce. And so that's why I'm so excited about our Future Ready Institutes, but really excited about the new trade school that we're doing.
I saw that. I thought that was
it's awesome.
The coolest thing.
It is awesome.
You got the commercial real estate.
That's right.
Putting in
Yes.
$500 million. You got had several investors, and I don't know what you call them, but donors to that system. That was, and it's such a great.
Well,
they're going to have mentors. They're going to get practice.
You've got the local electrical unions,
Yes.
the carpenter unions that are going to have hands on those kids, and so those kids, and then at the same time taking their state required coursework to get a high school diploma. But when they walk out of that school over there, I mean, they're job ready. They can go somewhere and get a very high paying career.
Oh yeah, be a plumber.
So that's exciting. That's exciting.
Now, let me just change gears just a little bit. To you personally, what's the biggest issue coming up? I mean, just on the immediate horizon, what are you looking at? Is it the
Well,
school thing?
certainly that's an issue. We've got to get that fixed, and we've got building problems, all over the county that you alluded to earlier. And candidly, the school board historically that probably I've been a part of too, county commission, we hadn't done a good job of putting our funds in the right place to address, those issues. Certainly, that's a concern. Doug, I'm very concerned about some of the things that are kind of trying to creep in to some of our curriculum here in Hamilton County.
Have you ever looked at that too, as a school board member?
Well,
About what's going on in the curriculum?
we don't look at it as a board collectively. There's a committee that's appointed that's made up of parents and business people and teachers that look at that stuff. But I'm telling you, we've got to have a greater emphasis on paying attention to some of the things we're putting in front of our kids.
A lot of parents I talk to, that's their number one concern.
It's scary, and
after you get past the COVID thing,
that's right.
That's your number one.
It's very, very subtle, and and you think, well, this CRT and Planned Parenthood, that happens in New York and California. That doesn't happen in conservative Hamilton County.
Well, Hamilton County's not what it was. You lived there long.
It's changing. It's changing.
A lot of it's for the better, and so I mean, we're growing, we're prospering. We're the number 2 state in the country for people to move here and invest and live here from other states. Texas number 1, Tennessee's number 2. California is the 50th worst state in the country for businesses and people exiting. I mean, the census shows that, and businesses and everything. So people leave places they don't like, and they come to places they do like, and they like it here. And that's why we've got such a boom in building and things like that.
Well,
I'm here. I'm sorry. So, on your personal horizon, what do you use? What's your? I want to work in this thing.
Well, let me speak specific to my district. Okay. Now, when we make decisions as a board, we want to make decisions based on what is best for the 40 some odd thousand students. But obviously, I want to be a voice for my constituents, and take care of my schools. So I don't mean that selfishly, but I want to fight for those people and be a voice for them. We have some real needs up in the Hickson area. One of the things, and people kind of kid me about it because I very often bring it up at our Hickson High School, is a bus depot, meaning that a lot of the bus routes that run in Hamilton County park their buses on the campus up there at Hickson High School, and have for several years now. Well, you got to have a place to park those buses. I understand that. But what has happened is that we really want to increase our ag program and some of our other programs at Hickson High School, but we can't do it because those buses are tying up the space that we need to increase some of our education pieces at Hickson High School. So that's how on my personal agenda, I'm fighting to find a place to get those buses and have that depot move somewhere else. And
maybe somebody watching now get in touch with you.
Well, we've been working on that hard, so I want to see that, get that done. We need a gym at Hickson High School. I was talking to the basketball coach at Hickson High School today. They're getting ready to start basketball season. They have one small gym. Doug, they have to bring those kids in at 6 o'clock in the morning to practice, the boys, so that the girls can practice in the afternoon after school is out. And then, that makes for a long day. You got kid that has to get to school at 6 a.m. before school to practice sports, and then he has school all day. And so we need a new gym at that high school. So there's some things that I really want to see happen. My buildings up there, schools are in pretty good shape. I mean, there's some little things we need to get done. And from a performance standpoint, again, I probably say this kind of braggadocious, if you will, but we do very well holistically. My 9 schools, and I'm very, very proud of that.
We're talking to Joe Smith, who's 3rd District, the Hamilton County School Board. And Joe, if somebody wants to talk to you, now I do want to clarify this. We asked her once. You are going to run for office again in 2022 re-election?
I am going to run again.
Okay. Do you expect to have any opposition?
Well, I mean, who knows? It's early yet,
Yeah.
you know, because that election is not until next year, just about a year away.
It'll be here for
It'll be here before we know it, and I don't know. Somebody may emerge and want to run. I would like to think that the majority of the residents up there feel like I've done a good job. I know I've worked very hard at it to do a good job and be representative of their thoughts and attitudes and opinions and make good decisions. So someone may emerge, but I'm going to run because I feel like that's the thing to do.
Good for you. How can people get in touch with you, Joe? If they want to, they've got a concern or a question, or how could they get in touch with you? Have you got an email?
Well, of course, I have our email address that we all use, through Department of Ed, and that's jsmith@hcde.org. Or they can call me, Doug, and I don't mind. Everybody has my phone number. I've got the same number I've had for 30 years, and I give it to everybody. I don't think I'm hiding from anybody, but that number is 400-8472. And I try to answer every email, and it's challenging sometimes, and every phone call.
Wow, that is a full-time job. Well, Joe, thank you for coming to talk to us today. And anything else you'd like to tell the folks who are watching?
Well, get involved in your community and whatever school that you may have a interest in, and our young people need you, need us, needs the community. So I would just encourage you to get involved and help teachers, help schools, encourage students, and then when it comes election time, then vote for those candidates that you think could best represent what needs to happen in public education in Hamilton County.
Very important. A lot of people depend on the public schools to educate their children, and we need good leadership. So, Joe, thank you for coming, and thank you for watching this edition of Hamilton Flourishing.